Welcome everyone. I see a few people have already joined. My name is Ali Moore and I'm your host for today. We will be starting our webinar very shortly, Recruiting the Next Generation. It's part of our Women Empowered Access series that we've been running. Got some fabulous speakers lined up for you and really looking forward to hosting this topic that IPAF and a lot of companies in the industry have been talking about over the last few months. So just bear with us. And we're going to wait and get everybody joined on. We've got quite a large number of people who wanted to join us today, so we're going to hold on and let people come in. So it's 12 o'clock. We've still got a few people that are wanting to join on. So we will just hold off for a couple of more minutes before we get started with our webinar today. Just welcome all of you that have just joined. I'm conscious of people's time, but we did have a flurry of last minute people wanting to join. So just want to give them time to get organised and get onto the link. Just to let you know that it's being recorded, but that doesn't make any difference to the people watching. So you can ask questions in the chat. We'll look through those. We've got a team in the background who are going to be looking through the Q&A, so please feel free to do that. We're going to start off with a short presentation on our topic, recruiting the next generation, and then we're going to be speaking to our amazing panel that I'm going to be introducing very shortly. So just bear with us, last couple of minutes to grab a cup of tea, get yourself comfy, ready for the next hour. These have always been quite vibrant and lively debates, topics, conversations, and I know this one is going to be just as good. Just seeing those numbers going up, which is lovely, seeing people join. We're going to be probably starting in about 1 minute's time, just to make sure that we need a lot of time normally once we get chatting, so we don't want to cut ourselves short. Just 1 more minute before we go live with everybody. And of course, if you're watching this on replay, you're watching the recording, do feel free to join our Women Empowered Access LinkedIn group, where you can ask questions and still be involved in the discussion. And you can also, through the IPAF website, as it says there, see our previous 2 webinars that we have hosted. Okay, so I think we are going to make good use of our hour together and we're going to get our webinar started. So just going to, hopefully, fingers crossed, technology works for us and we'll get going on supporting the next generation. So welcome everybody. This is our topic. This is our webinar, Supporting the Next Generation. I'm just going to start screen sharing. Just bear with us one moment. I just need Courtney in IPAF HQ to stop sharing because it won't let me share while she's sharing. Perfect. Thank you. Amazing. So, supporting the next generation. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for bearing with us. We like to give people time to get registered. And as I said, we had some last minute people wanting to join us. So if you're watching this live, welcome, welcome. Please use the Q&A, pop your questions in there and our team will look out for them. And if you're watching it on replay, as I said, you can join our LinkedIn group, our Women Empowered Access. My name is Ali Moore and I'm your host for the next hour. And it's my job to guide you through this topic. This is a topic that IPAF and a number of companies with the industries that they support have been really diving into. We recently had a conference in Copenhagen where the whole theme of the conference was helping companies to encourage the next generation. Now, here, of course, we're focusing specifically on supporting the next generation of young women to come into some of these roles that potentially are seen as more male dominated. But we're going to get some opinions from our panel on that later on. We have a wonderful panel with us. So I'm going to introduce them before I just give you a little bit of background and some stats and some figures on what we currently know about young women and the next generation coming into these types of industries. So firstly, I want to welcome Francesca Marchesini. So Francesca, welcome and thank you for being on the panel. Francesca joined Kohler Engines in 2018. She's had numerous and diverse roles in the department, and she's now channel manager and has been since 2021. She's responsible for communicating the value proposition of Kohler Engines at different market segments. She coordinated the development and now oversees the implementation of the Kohler Rental Partner Programme, and she trains the rental mechanics to build stronger relationships with European rental companies. So thank you for being on our panel this time round. We look forward to talking. I'd like to welcome Charlotte Bennett. So Charlotte Bennett is UK and Europe People Director of Sunbelt Rentals UK and Europe. She joined Sunbelt in 2022. She's a big believer in cultivating early careers. She's gained HR experience across multiple sectors: private, public, retail, logistics, construction, oil, gas, and aerospace. That's quite a list there, Charlotte. Her background is in the full contract life cycle, from bidding and mobilization to delivery and continuous improvement. And she has got experience working in the UK, Europe, and the Middle East. So welcome to our panel, Charlotte. And finally, last but definitely no means least, we have Carolyn Boutzman. Carolyn has spent 8 years in the construction industry. She's a board member of Zeppelin Rental, is a member of the supervisory board of Zeppelin Group, a former consultant. She studied economics and holds an MBA in leadership and management. So another amazing panel of women really achieving in their roles. And I'm always interested. I know when I see the panel names that we are going to have just a really vibrant conversation later on. Let's first of all just take a few moments just to dive into this topic of bringing in and supporting the next generation. And this is where technology, we have to get it working. Never works smoothly initially as you want it, but here we go. So these are some of the terms that we have been talking about a lot. For those of you who were maybe at Copenhagen, who are on here, you will have heard a few of the speakers referring, but let's just remind ourselves about these generational differences. We had those baby boomers born just after the war, 1946 to 1964. And for them, things were about stability. It was about getting back into that normal routine. It was about building families. And roles back then were still very traditional, male roles and female roles. Then we had Generation X, born 1965 to 1980. Things were starting to be a little bit different then. Women were starting to go out to work, although my mum, similar to many people's parents, or people my age, I think, she had a role, but she went part-time and then she gave that role up when she had children. Women were still the primary carers generally. But we were starting to have this kind of view that there was more out there, that women could do different roles and that women could come out of being just in the household. Then we really had some changes. We had our millennials, born 1981 to 1996. And here we have a group of women who have built on Generation X. They have, been involved. They've seen those kind of power dressing of the 80s, they've seen that in the magazines. And for them, there was a whole host of new opportunities. University was opened up, and they've gone into that workplace now, and they've really forged careers across a wide range of different roles. But interestingly, and we'll see on the next slide, what these individuals are looking for from a job is now becoming very different to some of those generations earlier. So then we have Gen Z. Yes, Gen Z, 1997 to 2012. For some of us, that was only yesterday, but we have got these Gen Zs in the workplace. I know when someone says when they were born and you think, my goodness, that was only yesterday, but they're there, they're in the workplace. And they are really pushing boundaries, and they're really clear about what's important to them when they are seeking employment. So we're going to be talking about that as well. They've got not just what they're looking for in terms of what's good for them, but they're really interested in what businesses are doing in terms of the environment, in terms of social responsibility. So we're seeing these needs change. And we've got this Gen Alpha 2012, okay? As some of you know, I've got children who go across a range of these. So I have a 10-year-old Gen Alpha, and we don't even know what kind of roles are going to be available to this Gen Alpha, the types of roles that he's going to be applying for were things that never existed when even, my eldest, who's 28, when she was applying for her first roles, some of these roles that he's going to go for are very different. So there are generational differences. There's generational differences in expectations. There's generational differences, certainly in gender roles and how gender roles are assigned. And of course, we are living in a world now where gender itself is a lot more fluid. And people, often don't want to be defined by gender. So when we are talking about this topic of women empowered access, women in industry, we've mentioned on our previous webinars that we need to be really conscious of this gender fluidity as well, and being inclusive and diverse in our workforce. So let's remind ourselves of what people were looking for when they were, in previous generations. There was stability. There was long-term employment. That was really important. There was benefits so that you could, be looked after. People wanted to work quite locally. They had extended families still locally, and they wanted to stay in one company, and future development was about promotion within. So I can remember very much being part of that form where you almost got a job for life, and you stayed in that role. And that was the same across the genders. Since the millennials have come into play, we've seen that change a lot, and it's continuing to change. They want flexibility. They don't want to be tied to one company potentially, or one role, or one location even. They're looking at personal growth. They're much more able to state what their needs are. And there's a huge movement now for people in the personal growth arena. working from home. So people no longer wanting to go into that office, they want to work from home, or they want to work from a different location altogether. They want to be able to work abroad. They're really interested in green policies. They're interested in corporate responsibility, and they will actively filter out companies that they feel do not represent those particular topics well. They don't want to be associated with those. And tech is huge. You know, we are in a tech savvy world now. Our children are brought up with tech, and tech gives them so many more options in terms of the types of roles that they're doing. So, what does that mean when we're thinking about bringing young women into these kind of industries, particularly industries previously seen as potentially quite male dominated? Well, here's a little bit some stats about the drive for women to enter. We're kind of calling it under the STEM because I think that's a word that people recognize. The science, technology, engineering, mathematicals, these are kind of our more industrial based roles. So we know that since 2010, we've seen a rise, 21 to 24% rise in the UK. So we have a total of 216,552 more women in STEM roles. Okay, that's great. But it's only a small rise in percentage, right? Okay, over quite a number of years. We know from statistics that 16.5% of those women are working in what are deemed as engineering roles. So we've managed to gain some data there. But what we don't really have data on, and I think this is something maybe that the women on the panel can help talk about, is we haven't really defined what it means to be in this kind of industrial, logistical, transportation, powered access. You know, we haven't got a definition of that. So there's very limited figures to show whether women are in those roles. And there's also limited data about whether it's a company that is in that particular arena, or is it an actual, you know, job role. Do you actually physically have to be in a physical job role, or can you be associated with that company? So there's still a long way to go. What stops young women from going into these roles? Well, here's an interesting fact. We know from our research that at an educational level, girls tend to be better suited to mathematical and scientific roles. However, at the age that they are asked to take options in those roles, certainly in the UK, it may be the same in other countries, they are losing interest. Things are not holding their interest. Now, one of those reasons they believe is that science, mathematics, engineering type options, they are described as complex roles. They're seen as more difficult topics. And what girls have a habit of doing is underestimating their own ability. So they're starting to lose interest a little bit in these topics. They're very, very capable in them, but now they're kind of having this background noise that these are the harder topics to do. And so there's this kind of, do I want to do that? Do I think I'm going to manage that? And if I need to get good grades, is this really an area that I want to go in? We're also not very good at updating our curriculums. So lots of curriculums do not have women role models when they're talking about these kind of roles. They're very male orientated because the curriculum has been perhaps the same curriculum for a number of years. So the material hasn't been updated. We don't update on the kind of roles that are available, you know, and make it interesting and exciting, you know. So there is a perception about some of these roles that doesn't maybe fit with the type of roles that a young woman wants to take on. So there's lots of things going on. And then, you know, one of the final things is, and I talk about creating a movement, is young people, they want to be included. They want to be part of their group and their tribe. So to be a young woman who goes into an option in education where there are very few other women can be quite intimidating, okay? And we've done surveys on this where young women have not felt particularly comfortable all the time because the whole class has been males. Now, there may be, you know, no reason for them to be intimidated, but they are separating themselves from their peer group. And so we've created this cycle that it then is like, well, no one else is doing it, so I'm not going to do it because I don't want to be the only one that's doing it. So how do we break that cycle? So there's lots of things that are going on at that early age. And one of our questions we're going to be talking about is this education, you know, and getting started at an early age. So in the workplace, and I know my panel are going to have thoughts on this, this is some of the things that have been suggested by recent surveys. Getting in there and getting hands-on experience early is crucial. Letting them actually see what roles are available and letting, you know, lots of young women do well when they're actually able to have a go at stuff. They're actually very practically minded. So getting in there and allowing them to see what's available. Advertising of different roles outside of the norm. This isn't just about, and I'm going to use a very in a box kind of description. This isn't about being a forklift truck driver. Okay, this isn't about someone working outside on a building site. Yeah, we have to let them know that there are all these other roles available. When they get into employment, making sure we understand that for many, they've never worked in an employment before. You know, opportunities to be employed at a young age are disappearing. So a dedicated onboarding for school leavers to keep them interested and help them settle. Approaching apprenticeships as worthy and equal to grad programs. You know, there has been a stigma about apprenticeships versus grad programs. We've had a real push here in the UK for university to be your option. And actually apprenticeships are amazing, but we don't push them as much as we should. Role models, you know, looking for those active role models and advertising them and getting them out there. And engaging with schools such as in the UK, we have Worktree and the Work Hub, where you go in and you talk about careers and you share what your company is doing, and you talk to them whilst they're making their decisions. So lots of things that companies can do, and I know some of them really are doing in the workplace. So there's a little bit of background about what we've been talking about with bringing on the next generation. I just want to share on behalf of IPAF some of the work they've been doing in this. Oh, it's just gone blank. Has it gone blank for everybody else? Everyone's nodding at me. Okay. Oh, it's come back. Okay, let's not touch it. Let's step away from the technology. So there I was on behalf of IPAF, just to give you an idea of what they've done in terms of the Women Empowered Access, because it's going to be an amazing project. They've collected career stories, over 30 published stories from women in industry. So I highly recommend that you have a look at those. Obviously, our webinar series, and we are available on YouTube. So please go and have a look. Mentoring program via our sort of LinkedIn and our community that we've built. We have got mentors working with mentees from the industry, which is amazing. And we want to build on that. So do let us know if you're interested. And our LinkedIn group is going to be very much part of our ongoing part. It's about networking. It's about building, you know, connections. It's about being part of the conversation and signposting. So lots of information and guidance on the IPAF website for employers about where you can find extra resource. So I just want to say thank you to IPAF for leading that initiative. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to stop talking, actually. I'm going to start getting our panel involved. So, welcome panel. I'm going to kick off actually with a question to Charlotte. So welcome to the panel, Charlotte. And the first question kind of opens up the conversation. How can we make what we now class as powered access, this industry that a lot of you work in, how can we make this more inclusive, more appealing? How can we actually start to attract young women into these types of industrial roles?
Thank you, and thank you for having me, Ali.
You're
So,
welcome.
yeah, it's something that we are really trying to work through at the moment. We here at Some About Rentals, we launched our new inclusion drive about 3 months ago now. We've spent a lot of time researching how we're going to ensure we do not fail on this, and we took a lot of time doing some research, working with consultants to understand. So a big focus for us is Gender Equality Matters, and that's the name of our new ERG, led by Jenna Watkinson, who's fantastic. One of the things that we've been doing is looking at how we recruit, and starting to realise that the platforms that we tend to use, maybe we're not attracting the diverse candidates that we want to see in our business. So we're trying to think outside of the box and sort of going on more local, maybe more diverse platforms to try and get a greater diversity through the door in terms of interviewing. Other things that we're looking to do are sort of going out there and working with schools. You know, I think the point that you raised earlier around people just not seeing themselves, we're trying to do more working with marketing around our employee value proposition and making sure that when we're advertising for roles, we have got a diverse, picture which shows this isn't just, men. This is, there's lots of different roles on offer. And I think it's also about education, going out there and talking to people and bringing people along. We have a Hall of Fame awards every year, and we had one of our traffic management operatives, the winner for the year was female. It's not necessarily a role that tends to attract females, but it's just so positive that we've got this exceptional female who's won the award, and it gives us then the platform to go out and talk to potential candidates and say, this is where you could go with us as a business. The other things that we're thinking of is around training and mentoring, going out there and supporting with confidence. That's one of the things that we're picking up around, when we're trying to speak to potential candidates, what's stopping you? What's the blockers? What do you see as something that's holding you back? And I think in some cases, it's just giving them the information, showing them the roles that we've got on offer, bringing people along who are talking from the heart. They've lived and breathed it, and this is their personal experience. So this is an area that we're looking to get more involved in. We've recruited a new head of talent called Jenny Parry, who's fantastic. We've just launched our Women in Leadership apprenticeship scheme. We're looking at lots of different approaches around high potential programs, graduate schemes, the apprenticeship. The apprenticeship area is something that we are busily working through. I think historically it was always seen as, school leavers, which yes, there's a big part of that. But it's also about people who maybe have taken a slight career change, or people who are existing within our organisation who want to go down a different path. So we are trying to have a very broad view on this, and we're trying to work with other companies to understand, what are you doing? I think sometimes we can be a bit too insular in terms of our approach, and today for me is the start really of getting out there a bit more and talking to other companies to say we need to tackle this together. We'll be stronger together, and we can learn a lot from things that we're rolling out and piloting.
Perfect, thank you. It's just an interesting point there. I'm just going to come to Francesca and Carolyn in a second, but it's interesting that you talked about people moving into apprenticeships or retraining, because sometimes it isn't until you're actually in the working world that you start to see these other roles, these roles that were never shown to you in school, and then you become interested and excited about them. So I really like that, because we think a lot about school leavers, but actually you might capture more people slightly later on as they've started their journey into the working world. Thank you.
100%. Could I just add on to that as well? I think one of the things as well, so my first sort of proper role post uni was going into a construction company, and I went into the HR department. But actually, once I got into the HR department, I decided that I really wanted to get into operations. And I think one of the things that we're recognising is we seem to be able to attract females within the central functions. But then it's how do we support them in maybe broadening their view on what their future career pathway is? Because that's certainly my experience. Would I have ever gone into operations straight off the bat out of uni into construction? definitely not, is my own personal experience. But by getting in there, getting exposure, I decided then to make the jump and go into operations. So again, I think it's thinking outside of the box around how we can manage that attraction campaign.
Thank you so much. Carolyn, I'm going to come to you. What would you like to add?
Well, when I also look at how I joined Zeppelin, it was a coincidence that I found that company because it was recommended to me. And that is why I think all companies that are in B2B have that not problem, but a challenge that they are not automatically known with the brand of the company with new potential colleagues. And that's that I really, I think what's not seen does not take place. So you have to be there where people take decisions, and where they, as you showed and as Charlotte said, where people talk about what would be my option after school. Do I go to a university, or do I go to more a craftsmanship role where I potentially do not need necessarily university, and I come from a country and currently work in a country that they have the same problems or challenges, Germany and Denmark, where the majority of people kids after school decide to go to university. And that is why we partner at the moment with communities, at least in Denmark, that communities and so the city where we are close to with our company, that we partner with them and say, okay, let's bring kids in 5th, 6th, 7th grade at school to our company and to other companies that offer craftsmanship positions, and to show what is a potential role, and also to show that these roles also can have something to do with digitization. That is, it's not the old thinking of how a electrician worked maybe in the past, but it also changed, that also these roles changed a lot. And I'm 100% sure what they don't see does not exist for them. So we try to invest a lot at Zeppelin to be there where decisions are maybe influenced early. And therefore, we also launched a corporate influencer program. So because every employee at Zeppelin is an influencer and a hopefully fan of the role that he or she has and can talk about that. And
thank you so much. Francesca, do you have any final thoughts on that topic?
Well, a lot of things that I already thought about was already mentioned by the other panelists. I just wanted to add on the fact of the visibility about some jobs. I am also in Kohler by chance. I would have never thought of ending up in an engine manufacturer company because I didn't really think about the existence of that. I mean, the engine is even less visible than other things that you can see in a construction site. But what you are not often aware about is the variety of skills that you can lend to the industry, even if you're not into very practical things. For example, I studied foreign languages, and therefore I also developed many communication skills, and that is fundamental in any kind of industry. So I think it's important that a company in this industry shows the majority or the variety of skills that are necessary to the industry itself.
I agree. Yeah, I think that we're not good at kind of showing the whole range. We focus on one particular job. Whereas there are so many gains, aren't there, from some of these roles and skills that people have that they think, oh, actually, I could do that because I have those skills. I could bring something to the table. Francesca, I want to stay with you. Sorry.
No,
Is it
I just
somebody?
wanted to say, and also when I look how on which fairs, for example, we have been in the past, it was always on construction industry topics or construction fairs or construction equipment affairs. But there are, I think, shortage of workforce is a problem for all industries, and therefore, for many years, there are pure career fairs. But who is there? What are the companies that are there? All the big B2C brands. And there we also have to be present and to be seen. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I agree. So, Francesca, slightly different subject, well, slightly different question, but we hear a lot about challenges, barriers. You know, one of the reasons we have, projects such as Women Empowered Access is to try to, make access easier, to be more visible. And so I wondered what your thoughts were on, do these barriers and challenges still exist for younger women coming into the industry? If so, what are they, and what can we do about that?
Yeah, so first of all, I have to say that it's difficult to speak in general. I mean, people who identify as women have a variety of different backgrounds based on their ethnicity, on their social background, on the opportunities that they have or not had to study. So I can speak from my experience as a privileged young white woman that could study at university, is living in Europe, and he's a millennial. So a very specific, let's say, I of course represent a wide and wide part of the society, but it's not just that. So from my experience, as I said, I didn't consider this career path when I started studying. And so when I entered the industry, I was very not at ease because I felt out of place. No one looked at me at the first events that I attended 3-4 years ago. Also in my company, women are a minority. And so I visually felt very different. Also from a like a content standpoint, I felt very behind because I had to prove myself twice that I actually learned what I was talking about, so technical stuff, but I also belonged there from like a kind of stereotypical point of view. So it was, I think it's important that every part of a company or the industry can understand this potential difficulty. So when you represent the majority, be mindful of what the minority is going through and express your closeness, let's say, but also encourage them to ask questions and to be part also of the decision-making process to make sure that they feel part and that they are heard and that they really belong there.
So I just want to follow up on that before I get some input from our other speakers. But you said there that, when you first went in there, you were not really seen, And do you think that that was because you were female? Do you think that was because you were young, or a combination of both? Or what is your personal view?
I asked myself many questions that I have many times that question. I don't know, because of course, no one would come to me and say, it's weird that you are here. Sometimes I had people, men, saying, you know your stuff, like in a surprised way.
Right.
But I don't know if it's because I'm a woman or because I'm young. I believe it's a combination of both. I
Okay.
encourage people to ask themselves this question, like, what am I thinking about the person that I have in front of me? Do I have some biases that I should be more aware of in order to deconstruct them? I think this is like an exercise we should all do within our each companies.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing, as you say, your personal view. And we're really conscious all the time, as you say, that there's lots of things that come into play that prevent barriers for people and women coming into industry and work. So we can only talk about the ones that we have experienced. Carolyn, coming to you on this topic, which I think has raised some really interesting points.
Yeah, exactly, because I think that is why it's so important that there are external networks like the IPAF Network for Women Empowered Access, because when you have doubts, it's so helpful if you have a safe space where you can talk to others, where you do not have to have worries that someone else thinks then, is she weak, or is and in best case you have that in the company. And for example, at Zeppelin, we created a network for women at Zeppelin, but that is now 8 years old, and now we have developed it further to a more broader diversity campaign of We Are Colorful. But if you don't have that because your company does not have it, then use these networks like in Women Empowered Access, because there are maybe others that have experienced a similar situation, and then you have maybe it's good then to talk to them, or have the opportunity to talk about your maybe worries.
It
and
is
maybe
interesting
to learn that they should not be there. So maybe. Yeah.
It's come up in previous webinars. We've had a mixture. We've had some women who have really felt that they've experienced no barriers, and they've had very positive support. And we've had other women who have had stories where they have felt unsupported. And I really liked there what you said, Francesca, about people asking themselves what they're thinking about the person in front of them, because we do have those unconscious biases, don't we, that come into play. But also, I think as women, just thinking about how we're positioning ourselves in terms of, is it because you are female, or is it your perception that it's because you're female, and not being finding a way to raise the issue, as you've said there, Carolyn, having a community where you can talk about, I feel this is what's happening, this is my perception, and being able to dive into that into a safe place, because it might be, it's nothing to do with the fact that because you're female, but you need to have somewhere you can talk that through. And I think that's really important. Charlotte, do you have some final thoughts on that question?
Not really, other than just to add, I think, I'm being asked today, what do I see as the blockers? I think it's quite difficult, I'm in a relatively senior position, as a female. I personally don't feel that I have too many issues or blockers in terms of my future progression or opportunity. But I think we have to get out there and speak to the people that are potential recruits of the future and understand it through their lens, because different generations look at things slightly different, and I think for us, we want to develop our Gender Equality Matters ERG to not just support our internal population but our future population, and I think information is key, isn't it, and it's about also getting that viewpoint but also solving it together. Because again, I think one of the sort of errors that I've personally made in the past is just making assumption and then steamrolling to try and make change, when actually, to me, it needs to be driven by the people that are impacted and feel the way they do. And I think that would be my sort of take on that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. As you say, often, having got an HR background as well, I can remember that, where you come up with an initiative and you think you're solving it, but the thing you're solving isn't actually what needed solving. You haven't gone out to the source and really dived into what's going on. So Carolyn, I'm going to ask you to kind of lead on this next question, which I think kind of leads on nicely from where we are, which is, how do we move away from this kind of stereotype? So we still have this saying of it's a male-dominated industry, or it's predominantly a man's role, or women, don't go into that kind of industry. So the language that we're using is kind of this stereotype, isn't it, of how people then perceive these industries, these roles. how can we start to break that down?
I would say a company internally, really with education and acting in as a role model. So, and that is, I think, what everybody can do in a company. It's not a company role; it's a role of a task. It's a task of everyone representing the company. So every leader can make a difference, but all employees have that. Can make there a difference, I think. And for example, also maybe very pragmatic steps that you can take to get, for example, more women into your company and therefore then also in the industry is like really looking very pragmatic, job position per job position. Do I get, if I put a job ad out, what type of applicants do I get? Is it only men? And if yes, why? Is it because there are simply no women in that field? Because there is such a minimum percentage of women doing a service mechanic apprenticeship that is maybe the reason, then it's okay, it's like it is. But are there maybe positions where there are women and they don't apply for our job? And then ask yourself why. Look at the words in your job ad. So what are the words that how you describe the job? Is it really like, ask other women how when they would read it, would they apply? Use your personal network if you don't have women in the company, and make there really very, very small steps, but steps in the right in the right direction.
I think I think that is interesting there, isn't it? That you know, you may get a lower percentage of female or female identifying applicants, but that may be because the pipeline is slower further down the line, because you haven't got the women coming into those roles in order to apply for the jobs. But I really like that about doing that review of the wording you're using. You know, words are really powerful. And, you know, maybe that job description has been like that for years, you know, maybe, and actually maybe it isn't attracting a younger, you know, regardless of gender, even like a younger person into the workforce. So some interesting points there. Charlotte, I'm going to come to you, because I know that when you were talking earlier, you said that you had noticed maybe that you were not getting a diversity of applicants through, and you'd already noted that as a company.
Yeah, so I think it's something we've had a new recruitment manager join us, a guy called Duncan, who's fab, and we've been looking at our stats in terms of who actually applies. And I think one of the things that we're looking at now is just reviewing the platforms in which we advertise. You know, we tend to use the pretty standard mainstream platforms, and I'm not saying they don't, you know, reap reward, they of course do, but I think it's about us now localizing our approach, working with our employee resource groups, you know, through that recruitment process of bringing in ERG leads, you know, existing employees within our business. We learned so much from how we can go out and recruit a more diverse population. And so we're working through that now in terms of you know, looking in the right places, because I think that's something that we've maybe not put enough effort into, and sort of really localizing the approach. You know, we're obviously very busy. We recruit for a lot of people, you know, on average, you know, anything from 80 to 120 people a month. So I think it's just spending a bit more time up front to say, who are we looking for here? Where are we going to go out and advertise? What does the actual, you know, advertisement look like? What pictures are we using? You know, these are some of the things that we've been looking at. I think also the actual initial discussions, you know, who's actually, you know, doing the initial stage. You know, is it that time pressured depot manager who is, you know, has got 10 CVs on his desk and he's busily working through it? Or do we try and give more recruitment team support? And do we look more at the cultural aspect? You know, so some of the things we're exploring now are around, you know, a little mini cultural survey. and understanding, you know, the personality profile of that person, and looking at our values and how they align. And so there's lots of things that we're trying to do to sort of broaden our view when we're hiring. And we'll learn along the way. You know, do I think we've finessed it and it's perfect? Absolutely not. But we're just at the stage where we're starting to trial a few different approaches. But that intel from our ERGs is, you know, and will continue to be very, very rich for us as a business, you know, hearing it directly.
I think that's a great point you raised there about, so you can be a company that with its PR and its media is going out to all the right places, and it's in schools and it's advertising, and then, but have you got everybody aligned in your company? So you know, if you have got, you know, so I've spent a lot of time, you know, my history was working in logistics and transportation, fulfillment centers, you know, and I think of some of the, you know, I'm using stereotypical language here, but some of the warehouse managers, you know, back in the day, they're busy, they've got an idea in their head already of who they want, and so they're almost, you've got all these diverse candidates, but for them, they're sifting through, and there's the person, and it's, you know, it's the man, you know, it's the one with experience, you know, it's the kind of fits the mold, and he's thinking that's the person. So it's almost educating the whole chain, isn't it? So that you don't lose that lovely bit of work you've done at the beginning.
Yeah. Do you know what I would say, though? There has been a big change, I think, due to the war on talent and it becoming harder and harder to recruit. I think what we've started to see, particularly with our senior hiring managers, you know, I feel that over particularly the last 6 months, how can we get more diversity? How can I get more women into my business?
Brilliant.
How can I get, you know, I'm really mindful in this particular area, I've got a really aging population. How am I going to do something about it? So I think because they're starting to realise now that by not attracting and recruiting a diverse population, they're only getting a proportion of the population. I've definitely seen a change, and I think we will see that across the board. I don't just think it's about rentals. So we're starting to see more of an appetite from our hiring managers to say, actually, you know, we need to bring in more assessment, you know, rather than just looking at that CV, you know, reading the name, the location, making maybe assumptions on date of birth and things like that. Actually saying, you know, we need to be, you know, we need to stand back and look slightly different in terms of the recruitment methods that we're using. But that's a journey for us as a business, you know.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Noticed a change, and I'm getting a lot of people approach me asking me those types of questions.
That's brilliant. So Francesca, I want to come to you. You're the millennial on the panel, okay?
I am.
And we've talked there about trying to find, you know, this new pool of talent. We need to find them, we need to get them interested, and we need to get them to want to apply. Much as we might want them, they've got to, you know, it's a two-way thing, isn't it? They've got to want to, you know, step into the arena. So it's a question that is maybe slightly wasn't on the list, but it's come to my mind. So apologies for putting you on the spot. But, you know, what's your view on this? What do we need to do to attract them? Where are they hanging out? You know, what's important to the millennials coming in? Because we've done, you know, we've got research and etc. But what's your own view on what's going on with them? What are they thinking about? What are they looking for?
Well, from my experience and the experience of my peers, friends, people I know, and I discuss these topics with, is that we really want honesty. We don't want just void claims like all this gender equality thing. It doesn't have to be pink washing, because we are not fooled by this. I mean, we can really spot when it's greenwashing, when it's pink washing, when it's rainbow washing. So establishing honest conversation with the potential talents is very important, because then you have to show that what you say you stand for is actually something that you care about. So when it comes to the pay gap in Italy, we're super far behind. I think there's only one company that actually gives equal pay to both genders.
Wow.
So, and I'm talking in a binary way, but just to make things clear.
Yeah.
So that is super frustrating for us, and we really want to be safe in the work environment. So when I feel that there's some stereotype playing against me, I don't just want to know that I can speak up, but then there are no repercussions. So this comes to the culture of every single person speaking and acting in the company every day. And this is something that I think companies should be very aware of and be mindful of that. So honesty is very important also in terms of sustainability. This is something that we pay a lot of attention to, and really bottom line, what's the impact of our company? So a rental company does not just do construction site works. It contributes to, I don't know, making our cities more sustainable, for example, because we help build the metro, we help renovate the buildings to make them more sustainable. So let's focus on this message, on the impact that we, with our skill, with our unique skill, because we want to feel unique, can contribute to the society as a whole.
Ah, that's really interesting. And it goes along with the research we've done, but it's lovely to hear it firsthand. As you say, you've talked to your peers and things like that. Sad to hear that, Italy has a way to go with your gender pay gap. There's lots of work, I know, globally that needs to happen, lots of things to take into consideration there. So thank you for sharing. So we're coming to the end. Our hour is almost up. So I just wanted to open it up to the panel. Have you any final thoughts you want to leave our audience with before we close down our session?
Oh, sorry, you go, Caroline.
No, just one thought on what we discussed also earlier is no matter if you're a big company and you have support in several functions, or if you're a small and medium-sized company, know your hurdles and make them as low as possible for the people that you lack, whoever it is, if it is women or others. It's all like know your hurdles, and then, as you said, go through the whole chain and then help each other out, so that not only always the same people look at job ads and hire mini-me's, and that is interrupted in a very positive way interrupted.
Thank you, Charlotte.
I think the only point for me is that we all have got a role to play. I have benefited from a lot of mentoring over the years, a lot of people taking me under their wing, giving me an hour every month to talk through where I'm at in terms of my sort of career journey, and I try and give that back. There's a lot of people that I try and spend time with, maybe every month, every couple of months, depending on what the conversation is. But I think all of us have to, it doesn't matter how small, give time to impart some of our experience, support them, be a sounding board, help them navigate some of the challenges, in addition to doing the bigger project work, that is going to get real sustainable change. I just think it's really important. We're all very busy people, and I certainly, some months you think, oh my gosh, I've got so much on, but we've all got to play a role in this change that will happen.
Yeah, thank you. Francesca, final words.
Well, I think that the important thing is, as also Caroline said, is coming together, share experiences, and think about what we are doing and how we can learn from that. So creating these spaces of sharing experiences, deconstructing stereotypes, and here I'm talking about everybody, of course, not just women, but also, and more especially men sometimes. It's very important. So it doesn't stay just plain words, it is followed then by actions.
Thank you. So thank you everyone for being with us. Thank you IPAF for allowing us this space for another Women Empowered Access. Although this is the final in our current series, we have things planned. Our LinkedIn group will remain working and live, and we want to continue to grow that. And please ask if you're interested in the mentoring scheme. We'd love to hear your views. We'd love to get you involved. We'd love to keep building our community. So thank you everyone for your time today. We have no open Q&A. So on behalf of IPAF, thank you to our speakers for sharing their knowledge. And I wish you all a wonderful rest of the week. Take care,
Thank you.
everybody, and bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks
Thank you,
for
everybody.
having us. Thank you.